We're on the verge of some very big things when it comes to Fallout 76. Wastelanders is coming. We don't know exactly when, but today the game just received an update to prepare it for that later edition. We'll be going over what was changed in this update, what it indicates in the future, but also we'll be looking at some other things going on with the game. Banned players and cheaters leaving, users not having items back, and to top it all off, of course, with new updates, we do have some new leaks around the future of the game. So in this video, we're going to discuss all of that. But before then, I do want to share a word from today's video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. I've been talking about Raid for quite a while now, and I consistently find myself going back to it. It's a free-to-play RPG that offers you quite a bit in the way of content. There's a ton of champions to unlock and customize, each of these having their own unique abilities, and there actually is quite a bit of variation between one and another. With these, you can complete the fully fledged story campaign, complete various dungeons, or even enter into the arena for PvP combat. And one of my favorite parts about all of this is, with Raid, you could play for just a few minutes, or even for hour-long sessions. Although, just recently, Raid was released on PC. And don't fret, because if you've already played on mobile, your progress will carry over, and you could switch back and forth. And the PC version is still free to play, but with a graphics upgrade. But with that being said, what are you waiting for? Go to the video description now to download Raid. And if you're a new player and click on these special links, you will receive 100,000 silver and one free champion, the Hexweaver, which does look particularly cool in-game. You can find the rewards in-game by clicking here. But hurry up, because these rewards are only relevant for the next 30 days. Now, of course, I do know not everyone loves sponsorships, but stuff like this is particularly helpful, especially in January, where ad rates are the lowest on YouTube. But looking back over to Fallout 76, today it received a roughly 2.5 gigabyte update on consoles and a 1 gigabyte update on PC. Bethesda described how this new update would be in order to make some behind-the-scene adjustments for the base game in preparation for the upcoming Wastelanders update. But to go along with it, there were some miscellaneous bug fixes to ship also. None of these were particularly major, things like the Sanitron no longer being able to be targeted by enemies, gas masks in Fallout 76 no longer reduce perception, or at the very least that was an intended change, but it didn't actually go live. Hypothetically, it is a good one. It would make gas masks almost a no-brainer unless you care about something else on your face. It would only provide positive effects, but in game it just doesn't work. It still does provide -2 perception. Bethesda responded to this somewhat, so hopefully we could see a fix to it, or we'll just have to wait till Wastelanders. Obviously not really a huge issue, but it does make me wonder, how did they not realize, what happened? Did they forget to include that change, or was there something else going on with a conflict on the live version of the game? Bethesda warned or cautioned this would be a small one, and it definitely was a small one, so hopefully you weren't expecting much. Although, I know I for one was actually kind of hopeful that we would get some more teases around Wastelanders with this update, whether it be another pre-quest like the one we saw previously, or even just some things to data mine like we have in the past. But we didn't. There's quite a bit in the way of miscellaneous objects and items, or even Atomic Shop items that were data mined from this, and I will talk a bit about those. And although behind the scene changes were made for Wastelanders, not much of this was actually in the form of new content for us to explore or digest. Which to me is something. In the patch notes, or as Bethesda calls them this time, the update notes, they do mention we are still working full steam ahead on the Wastelanders update, and when it is released later this quarter, it will contain plenty of new content for you to explore and conquer, as well as a large wave of bug fixes for the base game. Some people are reading into this saying how they say later this quarter could mean it actually is a bit farther away than otherwise. If you're not familiar, Q1 2020 is January, February, March. But I would argue the fact that we don't get any teases in this update is the greatest indication that it still is at least a bit away. Now, we haven't actually gotten any substantial updates, but in particular, during Wild Appalachia, it was very common for a couple of weeks before something would go live, it would get added in the files. Now that of course was a year ago, and maybe with Wastelanders it really will be just one giant download the day it does release, but if anything, we still probably got some waiting to do. But also, we do get further confirmation of the whole two builds theory. Some of the reason we don't have certain updates applied to the game thus far is because they were developed for the Wastelanders build, and backporting them isn't just simple. So even though this was a relatively light update, I wouldn't be shocked if there are a ton of completed bug fixes that just aren't on this build quite yet. And if you do want to try and participate in the Wastelanders PTS, you have till today at 6 p.m. to apply, and then likely in the next few days you'll be able to find out if you were accepted. Although separately, right after the announcement of the PTS and the applications did open up, a couple of community members actually revealed that they themselves had been participating in it already. It seems like this was very, very small, very exclusive, and typically somebody who already had some sort of tie, official or unofficial, to Bethesda. But that is pretty interesting that Bethesda opened this up even before many of us knew. So it's not even like this next wave of the PTS was the first one. Seemingly there was a very small one to precede it. And I have a feeling this week will be pretty big for Wastelanders news. Bethesda has their weekly Thursday article, which I think will contain something substantial. Total speculation, I thought last week would be something, and it kind of was substantial, the PTS, but it didn't have a ton of new details around the mode. But since on Friday, Wastelanders PTS will start to open up, I think on Thursday they'll probably give us a more substantial tease. And there's a lot of people super hopeful about leaks around this, and invariably it'll happen, especially in smaller or closed communities. Although be wary that Bethesda takes that stuff pretty seriously. You do have to sign and agree to an NDA. You're giving them your name, your address, your contact information, and likely violations of this won't be handled by the same people banning people in Fallout 76, but rather Bethesda or ZeniMax's legal team. So be wary. If you get accepted and you're thinking about leaking stuff, it's probably something you should think long and hard about before you actually do it. And just to be clear, I'm not going to be covering any of those leaks on this channel. I'll probably mention if they happen, but I don't want a copyright strike. I don't want to piss off Bethesda and ZeniMax Legal, so I'm going to probably steer clear of that. But speaking of hackers and bans in Fallout 76, we still are witnessing this ongoing hardware ID ban wave for the game. Of course, earlier in December, we had two major hacks. For a while, those people just went unbanned until after the holidays, and specifically around a week and a half ago, hardware ID bans started getting handed out. So many users lost not only the account they hacked on, but any other accounts that were played on that same system. This has been a gradual thing, and it's still going on. New people are being banned seemingly almost every day. And as such, several major hackers in the Fallout 76 community also have been leaving. And supposedly, the person behind the very notorious video where he steals 500 players' inventories and the crying kid was actually one of these people. And although in that regard, even though the bans came definitely too late, it was several weeks after the fact, at least as they did come, they were substantial. It was banning all accounts and permabans mostly. Conversely, on the victim side of things, we still haven't heard much, and there's a few lingering problems with this. Many users who got their items stolen out of their inventories still haven't gotten anything. Naturally, this is a more difficult problem to tackle. A lot of different users losing very specific items. It's not like you could just pay them off with, or hopefully they don't, that would be bad. But most people had God roll legendaries, and they want that specific item back. And although I respect it is difficult, that also is something that really should have been done by now, I feel like. We're now approaching a month since this happened, and really nothing has been done for those affected by it. If it was me, I probably would stop playing. I tend to keep all of my best and most useful items on me, and to have to grind all of that out again or restart from almost nothing, I would be pissed. Separately, we have the other issue where 3-star legendaries were created by hackers and traded all throughout Fallout 76. As of right now, it doesn't seem like any of those were removed, and it's not clear if they ever will be. Just recently, a new dupe method has been described for Fallout 76. It has gone fairly public. Obviously, I'm not going to give any explicit details on it, but it's widely known and definitely being abused. That was something I was kind of hoping would get patched or addressed in this most recent update, but it hasn't been. So although Bethesda definitely did a good job on the banning and is continuing to do a good job on the banning, there still are a lot of other lingering issues that need to be addressed. It's really a hard situation because on one hand, they have the big Wastelanders update right on the way. I'm sure there's a lot of manpower going to that, addressing bugs before they even pop up, and even the current ban wave that is ongoing. But at the same time, some of these other issues aren't just going to go away. They're not things you could really neglect or ignore, as they're just going to become larger and worse. I certainly don't envy being Bethesda support right now. But then, even separate from that, we also have a look at some of the future content on its way to Fallout 76. With this update in general, a few new things were added to the Atomic Shop, but nothing too crazy. Although, looking ahead, some of the new additions that we can see, it looks like there's going to be a Valentine's Day bundle of sorts, including, of course, Bethesda's bread and butter with a new power armor paint job, but then a variety of other camp items to make your camp and settlement just look a bit more lovey-dovey. So now I have to assume this won't be coming out until Valentine's Day in February, which is interesting because it does give you a bit of an insight as to how early some of this stuff is added. There are certain Atomic Shop items that have been in the files for months. It is pretty clear that there's a totally separate team working on this, and they seem to be doing quite a bit. Separately, it looks like a Responders pack of sorts is coming, and we get additional looks at the Responders power armor. This easily, to me, being one of the coolest power armors we've seen from Fallout 76. Unfortunately, it is going to be a microtransaction. And then there's actually a variety of Nuka Dark items, which is kind of cool, that being that rum that was actually kind of controversial. Little fun fact, I was supposed to get one of those and it never came. I don't know what happened with that. Although lastly, seemingly to go along with that Responders bundle, there will be a new Fallout First item, but just something simple with one skin for the survival tent. But otherwise, it looks like that is large in part all we have now for Fallout 76. I'll likely have another video out around the game either this Thursday or Friday. Many of us will probably find out over the next couple of days whether or not we were invited to the closed testing of Wastelanders. I guess it isn't super significant. It'll be significant if you're added, but for everyone else, there probably won't be a ton of media shared around it. Or if there is, I'm sure Bethesda will be very quick to shut that down. But it's a very interesting period for Fallout 76. We're going to have this testing going on. Hopefully some more and larger teases around Wastelanders in general, but we still don't know things like a release date. And likely Bethesda doesn't know either, so I think once we actually do get that release date, it'll probably be a fairly quick turnaround. But either way, with all of that being said, it's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.